Hi guys, welcome to Memo's Tutorials. Today we are looking at the first 20 elements of the periodic table. You need to be familiar with these elements. We just looked at how the mass number and the proton number are going to be shown. So for the first element, there is hydrogen, and that one at the bottom there is actually the proton number. So this sketch doesn't have the nucleon numbers or the mass numbers, okay? And what I want you guys to take note of is that across the periodic table like this, moving from left to right, we say these are periods. So period 1 is just got just only hydrogen and helium. Period 2 starts with lithium and ends with neon. Period 3 starts with sodium and ends with argon, like that. Period 4 starts with potassium, going all that way. All right, so those are periods. Then when you go down the group, forming like when you're going down like that, these are groups. These in columns are groups. So we have group 1, group 2, group 3 up to group 8. On your periodic table, you might realize that my group 3, where I'm having boron followed by aluminium, might actually be your group 13, just because your periodic table would have included the transition elements, which are colorful elements that will be found between your group 2 and your group 13 elements, right? But then we are not going to focus much on the transition elements. That's why your first 20 elements are these ones. You need to be familiar with them. With that being said, now we have what we call the electronic configuration. So the electronic configuration is how you would show your element on the atomic structures. You need to know that your first shell gets filled with 2 electrons, and your second shell can take a maximum of 8 electrons, and your third shell can take a maximum of 8 electrons as well. Then the fourth shell will take a maximum of 18 electrons, right? So what you need to know that whenever you're asked to write down the electronic configuration of any element, you need to know that the first shell is going to be 2 electrons. Second shell must be filled with 8 electrons, just in case you have got more than 8 electrons, right? So this is the electronic configuration of sodium. Sodium has got 11 protons. So the first shell gets filled with 2 electrons. Is this 11? That's actually 13. This is 13, meaning it's aluminium, right? The first shell filled with 2 electrons. The second shell 8 electrons. Now we're at 10. So the third shell will automatically have 3 electrons in the outer shell. What if they'd asked us to write down the electronic configuration for phosphorus? It was just going to be 2, 8, 5. 5 for the outer shell. So our phosphorus has got 5 electrons in the outer shell, right? So that's how you would write down the electronic configuration. Okay, so with that being said, I want you guys to have a look at this. We are having, these are group 1 elements. Group 1, it's a column going down. Period 1, it's going across. So period 1, we are having hydrogen and helium only. So now on group 1 element, I need to take note of something. We have 1 electron for hydrogen, 3 electrons for lithium. But the 3 electrons, they cannot all be fit on one on the first shell. Remember, we said the first shell gets filled with only 2 electrons, right? So the first shell will have 2 electrons, and the second shell will have 1 electron, like that. What about for sodium? Sodium has got 11 electrons. So the first shell will have 2. The second shell is having a 8. So 2 plus 8 will have a 10. So the extra one will go to what? To the third shell. So what I want you guys to take note of is that all group 1 elements, they've got 1 electron in the outer shell, right? And then as for group 2 elements, they are all going to have 2 electrons in the outer shell, okay? So all group 2 elements, they are going to have 2 electrons in their outer shell. Group 3 elements, they are going to have 3 electrons in the outer shell. Group 4, they will have 4 electrons in the outer shell. Group 5 will have 5 electrons in the outer shell. Group 6 will have 6 electrons in the outer shell. And group 7 will have 7 electrons in the outer shell. And group 8, that sometimes we call group 0, it means that its outer shell is going to be very full. It's going, if like for example, we have the first one being helium. Helium has got 2 electrons, and that's a full shell, right? The first shell gets filled with 2 electrons and helium is full already. What about neon? The first shell gets filled with 2, second shell with 8, and neon is full already. So the group 8 or the group 0 elements, these ones, they have full outer shells, and we call them the inert elements. These inert elements, they do not react, okay? They are non-reactive unless if you put them under special conditions. That's the only case that they are going to react, right? So now, on our next lesson, we're going to be looking at the group properties. We'll focus on group 1, group 2, group 7, and the group 8 elements that we call the inert gases or the noble gases or the group 0